Hello, my name is Alicia Anderson. I serve as campus minister with Lutheran Campus Ministry at Penn State, and I'd like to welcome you to Young Adult Voices. This is much of the content from the workshop offered as part of Edification Day for the Lower Susquehanna Synod in May of 2024. We chose not to record things so that the participants could have some candid conversation about what they heard and what they were thinking, but we'd like to share with you the introductions and the video itself. We have a number of young adults answering some prompts that we created for them, and then the questions that we invited participants to reflect on while they listened, and then have a chance to consider more deeply or have conversations in your own context, some other questions. As I said, my name is Alicia Anderson. I serve as campus minister at Penn State with Lutheran Campus Ministry, and in that context have a chance to see a lot of young adults and hear some of their thoughts and reflections, and also then alums as they head off to the rest of their lives, maintain those connections and hear from them. I also worked with Libby Baker-Mikesell, who is the pastor at St. James in Gettysburg. She is the newly ordained and newly graduated from seminary. She was not able to join us on the day that we did the workshop because ULS's graduation was the same day, and it turned out there were events in the morning that she needed to participate in. So we missed her, but we're very grateful for her work in gathering our interviews and putting together the questions and putting together the videos. So you will enjoy her work as well. I'm going to share with you the video or the questions that we're invite you to reflect on as you listen to the video and what folks have to say. So as you listen, I invite you to consider what you hear that catches your attention. Consider what surprises you, and consider what do you notice that has common themes. Chance to see some of those later. Similar questions will come up at the end. Now, if you give me a moment, I will make sure I have the video set with the right settings so that you can hear the sound, and we will share that and invite you to sit back and listen.
Hello, and welcome to Young Adult Voices, a project with the Lower Susquehanna Synod, ELCA. Our first interview was from Joanna Golden-Knoll. Joanna is a social media manager at military.com and lives in Lebanon, Pennsylvania. What is a faith community for you?
I think a faith community for me very specifically is a Lutheran community. Being Lutheran is very central to my identity. And I just really feel strongly about our theology and about the way that we worship. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it needs to be in a church. I found a really intentional faith community with Lutheran student community at Penn State when I was a Penn State student. And that was a fantastic experience for me, because while we did worship in church and we were at the Pascagoula Center as well, we were, other places too, physically other places. And it was the first time that I had experienced a faith community that lived outside of church walls. Now, as an adult, my primary faith community is a church that I go to every Sunday and then attend for things like choir and like a community meal on Wednesdays as well.
What are you looking for in a faith community?
Things that are really important to me when I'm looking for a faith community that fits me well. One is that it is a place that feels like it has possibility, and that people are genuinely interested in, in service, in worship. It's a place where my husband and I both feel comfortable being, and a place where we feel like we're in this place to do something together with other people.
What does your ideal faith community look like?
Sure, if I have an ideal faith community, because I don't know if there is such a thing. I think it's really important for people in a faith community um, to be able to acknowledge mistakes and to be able to be authentic and to grow together. So I guess that would be my ideal faith community.
What do you find challenging or uncomfortable in a faith community?
I think I am most challenged in a faith community when there are different perspectives brought up. And that doesn't necessarily mean, um, you know, it doesn't mean that it in a bad way. I think sometimes hearing a sermon that challenges you to look beyond, the rote expectation of a Bible verse very well, or that you've heard a sermon preached on 10 times the same way is really, really good. I think it is uncomfortable for me in a faith community when I have conversations with other people where we fundamentally do not see eye to eye, or not even eye to eye, but we fundamentally are different in our worldview, especially as it relates to our faith, our our worship experience, our reading of the Bible. And that's not to say that I expect everybody to have the same worldview as me, but I think sometimes especially when it comes to social justice or certain political ideologies, that when we are so polar opposite, it's very difficult for me to figure out how we both worship the same God and how we both have come to these really, really polar opposites, which can be very, very contentious.
What advice do you have for leaders in congregations who are hoping to reach out to young adults?
Very important to see young adults as individuals, not as a group you are trying to court. Um, I hated when I would visit churches when I was a very young adult, right out of college, and they would immediately be very welcoming and friendly, right? But also, I could tell that it was because I was a young adult, not just because I was a visitor. And I've been in uncomfortable conversations where I've been the only person under whatever age, and they've said, like, so Joanna, what can we do to get more young people? And I don't think that's how it works for church. I think church is a very relational place. And so if you are feeling welcomed, if you feel like the congregation genuinely wants you there because of who you are and because of your gifts and your talents, not just because you are fitting a demographic that they don't have currently or that they're trying to grow. That's how young people stay. And that's how they invite their friends. I think also, millennials and Gen Z are much more interested and excited about service opportunities as a way to come into church and really doing the God's work, our hands kinds of things, instead of worship on Sunday morning or, maybe these more structured other activities like a Bible study. Not saying that there's anything wrong with that, of course. That is really core to who we are as Lutherans. But I also think while social media is great, just simply having a social media page it does not mean that you're going to have young people flooding the doors the first time that you post something. I think that is, and I'm a social media professional, so that is something that I've seen in conversations, not just at church, but in conversations with other organizations I'm a part of. A lot of times people are like, well, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. Why aren't people in their 20s beating down our doors? And I think it's because young people want that relationship and they want to feel like they're in a place that values them for who they are, not what they are.
Our next interview is by Chris Lauer. Chris is the nonprofit manager at Waldo's and Company, and Chris lives in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. What is a faith community for you?
To me, it is a group of, I'm not even going to say like-minded, I'm going to say more committed individuals to each other. I think there's always a commonality of some ideals or some faith principles, but I think to me the biggest factor is a commitment to each other.
What are you looking for in a faith community?
I mean, so at this point, I have been through so many, and I'm in a weird stage where I'm looking for those things, but I'm also just very hesitant or very like, so right now I'm looking for a very patient faith community. But yeah, I have lots of like theological things I'm looking for and trying to figure out, but in a faith community, I think patience, kindness, grace are big things I'm looking for. But also like an active one. I've been on both sides of this, and I've been both people, and I think I'm less active than I have been and should be. But like a really engaged and actively engaged people. It's not a passive thing that we attend, and it's not a passive community that we attend, but it's people that reach out and care about each other, ideally. So I think we're going to come down to like engagement with the Spirit and engagement with each other, and like an honest engagement with both. I want a community of people that are willing to like wrestle with the hard stuff spiritually, with Spirit, with Scripture, and wrestle with the hard stuff with each other.
What does your ideal faith community look like?
They would be multi-generational, many points of view, creative, and well, multiracial. That's a good one too.
What do you find challenging or uncomfortable in a faith community?
I am having a hard time right now with ideologies. It's both really hard for me to land on a theology I agree with, and also hard for me to hear other people who have very short points of view. I don't know where to land when it comes to theology, and so I find myself just in this very strange position of interested, engaged, but also separated because I just don't know where I'm landing. So it is, as far as just faith communities go, it is always a challenge to build relationships. It's always a challenge to like make connections consistently. Like once a week and a high Sunday morning is not enough, and I have to make time to do that thing, and people have to make time to do the thing throughout the week. It's so much easier not to. So I think the challenging thing is getting over all of that junk and making those things happen.
What advice do you have for leaders in congregations who are hoping to reach out to young adults?
I am noticing much more that personal interaction, face-to-face interaction is harder. Engagement with strangers has a lot more red flags than I think it used to. So it's the easier road is with a screen between us. That's the easier road. That's the easier space. There's control, there's blocks, there's all these things, right? There's so that's always the safer space. I think I'm going to say people under 25 in particular, I'm noticing a lot more hesitation to meet strangers in life or engage strangers first. So all that to be said, I don't want the answer to be engaging them digitally. I don't want that to be the answer. That might be one of the answers. But in a sense, I guess it's finding spaces where they feel safe. I think people directly engaging each other is a scary thing. I think it's important. I think we need to get to that. But I do think it's scary. And so I know this isn't new, but I think it's more now. Putting yourself in a space where people could reach out and people could say hello is kind of intimidating.
Our next interview is from Katie McLaughlin. Katie is from Carlisle, Pennsylvania, and works as the Department of Agriculture OTO coordinator for the Governor's Office of Transformation and Opportunity. What is a faith community for you?
I think it's really important that a faith community is a place without judgment, and it is really a place of acceptance. To me, I think one of the biggest deteriorators maybe of faith today, or how young people see faith today, is how maybe it's broadcasted from a lens of judgment as opposed to a lens of acceptance. So to me, I think it's really important to be a place of welcome. I also think too, faith, God is everywhere. So faith can also be flexible. I grew up going to church on Sundays, and it was very much a part of my life. But to me, I find more and more as I get older that faith can be always on, and it is flexible. It doesn't have to be on Sundays. It can be throughout your everyday life in various ways. So I think for me, it's about making it a place of welcome while also recognizing that faith can be anywhere, far beyond the walls of the church as well.
What does your ideal faith community look like?
I suppose the community of the church, but it's so much more than that. In my own town of Carlisle, I know the churches around here are so involved in the community. And while faith might be the driver in bringing congregations together, I think that community and betterment of one another, no matter the denomination or what you believe, is really important. So for me, I think I'm really driven by that, and also how the community is welcomed within faith.
What do you find challenging or uncomfortable in a faith community?
Where people have the best intentions, but at times can really be a bit overbearing, whether it is through a faith lens, a family lens, and sometimes, as much as they want to be supportive, they can actually deter people from wanting to go to church. Whether it's kind of those inappropriate, very personal questions, or even judgments of others within the community. You want a place to be a place of faith to be a place of welcome. And for some folks and of different generations, I think that looks differently, and that's okay. But as younger people enter the church, I think it's really important to also recognize that generational differences do occur.
What advice do you have for leaders in congregations who are hoping to reach out to young adults?
Part of reaching young adults is going to where they're at. A traditional Sunday church setting, while we know it's there, it's present. I think sometimes the community base that young people are looking for today, there are opportunities to be creative. Good Lutherans like a good beer. Perhaps it's happy hour, and you're able to connect through a Bible study, or even if it's at a local bar, supporting a local business, connecting through faith and community in other ways. I think too, it's being there for others. So whether it's through volunteer events, perhaps giving back in ways, I think there's a lot to be said for those driven by purpose. And while faith certainly provides purpose, I think so does community. And as I look to the younger generations around me, how we lead purposefully is really impactful. Whether it's in how we work, where we work, and faith can certainly be a part of that too. I think also recognizing that faith can be anywhere, and it doesn't necessarily have to be at the Sunday service, but how we digest faith, and maybe even smaller tidbits, right? If it could be something on social media. It could be a simple reminder, maybe even see something on a billboard. But I find more in my day today that I'll have 5 to 10 seconds of, man, like things are good to get good today, and I relate back to God in that way. Kind of lift my mood and continue on with my day. And while that might not be the same as prayer or attending a Sunday service, me, it's what I need in that moment and how I connect with my faith. So really it's accepting that it looks different for everyone, but it's also creating community in a place where people feel welcome.
Our next interview is from Murray Bechtel. Murray is a senior consultant at Open Minds in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. What is a faith community for you?
I think the key word there is community. It gets thrown around quite a lot, but going to a place where you know most of the people and you feel like you can learn from each other. And I think a big thing too is like there's like a spirit of like humility and then service in the community. So it's just like a place where you have opportunities to serve out your execute upon God's will, in your life. I think going to church gives you those opportunities a lot of times. And also it's a good place to sharpen your soul and learn more from other people. And we all make mistakes, and we all have things that we're good at. And like they talk about with the body is made of many parts. Our service to God is more effective when we all work together.
What does your ideal faith community look like?
It's a place where you're challenged, but you're also, I think more so, it's a place where it's like your bastion, with like against the world, not like us versus the world, but like a place where you feel like you can like take a deep breath and reconnect and center yourself. I really like the liturgical nature of the church, going to St. James over the past couple of years, over the past year, because it gives me a break from all the technology and all the just constant distractions, and there's always a million pieces of information flying around you, and it's an opportunity to slow down and really refocus yourself for the week on what matters and why you're here on this world, why you're still alive, and like what it is that you're supposed to do. So I think of a church as a place like that. It's a place where you can gain some measure of peace and refocus yourself for the week to come.
What are you looking for in a faith community?
I hope that the faith community that I'm a part of has the same kind of relationship that I do with God, where it's someone that walks alongside you and a lot of times is carrying you, through situations. God's who you really need to put everything on. And I want to see a faith community, the members of that echo that, where they put their hardships, they put their blessings on God, they trust in God's will, and I hope that my kids are able to find that security in God, and know God as a friend, as I have over the years, because it's carried me through quite a bit. But I also want to be a part of a faith community that questions a lot of the things they read about God, and the stuff they read in the Bible. And I think God likes us to think a lot about his nature, and think a lot about, like, Jesus always spoke in parables. Obviously, he liked the disciples to digest the information that he was giving them. So I want my kids to be able to really think about, come to their own conclusions on different matters of faith, but I want their center to be a friendship and close relationship with Jesus.
What do you find challenging or uncomfortable in a faith community?
It's just, I think the thing that makes me uncomfortable sometimes is a lot of these churches, I'm not calling out anyone in specific, think that they have the correct reading on what it is God wants out of us from the Bible and in his teachings, and they're so certain about it that it gets to the point where they even think other Christian denominations are heretical. And there's a lot of infighting with the churches on stances in the U.S. So I look at a church and see how much focus there is on the pastor over on God. I've seen a lot of churches where, as someone that becomes a leader, a lot of times you do have to have a bit of an ego to be able to stand up in front of a couple hundred people and preach every Sunday. But it's when that translates to thinking you're somehow divinely blessed and the things you say are going to be correct, and people are less than you. We really have to watch out for that. And
What advice do you have for leaders in congregations who are hoping to reach out to young adults?
I think in the U.S. right now, the big focus is on inclusivity. There would have been, even in the New Testament, everybody was like, you can't preach to the Gentiles or the Samaritans, and like they're like, oh, like only God's people can be included here. And we see a lot of that reflected today because of and it's not necessarily as much like the color of someone's skin necessarily, but maybe the way they dress, it means a lot to people for some reason. The bumper stickers on their car, qualify or disqualify them from being a part of the faith community for people. So I think if a church shows that really anyone can walk in the door, as long as they're being safe around other people, that they are included, and that we go above and beyond from just having open doors to the church, and instead we're participating in the community and community events.
And our last interview is from Adam Knoll. Adam studies mathematical economics at Gettysburg College and is from York, Pennsylvania. What is a faith community for you?
A group of people that really care, not just about each other, but also about the community in which they're operating. And what that means to me is, say, sure, they go to church on Sunday, but maybe they also come in, and if there's a volunteer event, they'll go to that and take care of people who need it the most. Or perhaps, devote time to helping other people take care of their children if they need it, or in an emergency, or driving their kids somewhere if they're busy. Just people who are really engaged and active and making each other's lives easier.
What are you looking for in a faith community?
I think what I'm looking for in a faith community right now, what's valuable to me, is people who are outgoing and they definitely care. For example, people will ask how school is going. A lot of people do that, for example, when I go to St. James or when I go back to my home church in York. People ask how my semester's going, if it's wrapping up, or if I have any finals coming up, which of course I do, always do. And I think that it's important that I also act in the similar manner, make a place where I feel comfortable asking other people questions about themselves.
What does your ideal faith community look like?
My ideal faith community would have a bunch of people in it who are really excited to be there and just to talk to each other. They greet each other, say if it's a service, they'll talk to each other before or after, maybe both. They'll meet in the lobby, for instance, and just share how their lives are going, what's new, ask questions about other people, how they're doing, and if there's anything that they need help with.
What do you find challenging or uncomfortable in a faith community?
People try to use their faith to justify prejudices against other individuals or make them feel like they're not as welcome in that space as other people, when really that's what a faith community is for, I think, just welcoming other people and sharing in it with them.
What advice do you have for leaders in congregations who are hoping to reach out to young adults?
Any context like that, it's important to always reach people to greet people where they are. For instance, a lot of people certainly have a stigma against religious organizations because maybe they were raised or exposed to institutions that don't have the sort of focus on inclusivity, or they try to turn people away because of differences, or at least that is the vibe that they got from that. And so I think it's important always to let people know how welcoming you are.
A special thanks to everyone who helped make this video possible. Thank you for watching.
I'll share again my screen. We'll have the questions for discussion. What did you hear that caught your attention? What surprised you? What sounds familiar from your own experience? Did you notice themes? Did you notice contradictions? What are questions, issues, or concerns that have been raised for you? Are there ways your faith community can adjust? Hope you have some good conversation and that you find this to have been a helpful way to look at and explore possibilities for ministry, for connecting with young adults, and for shaping communities of faith that will be more inclusive and incorporating of folks of various ages and various realities. Take care and thank you so much.